Do you personally have to exert much effort to succeed?
Yes, it's a 24-hour-a-day job, and I love every minute of each hour, each day.
Every day to the valley of light.
I think a person to exist as a star is one thing, and a person to exist as an actress is another.
There's a storm inside.
I want to do all kinds of parts. I want to do as many serious roles as I do comedy roles. I, as a person, am much different from the comedy roles I portray on the screen, and also much different from the serious ones that I have portrayed and will portray.
She had a very short career, and she got killed in a very bad way.
You're going to be a sinner, be the best sinner on the block. You're going to do something that's naughty, do it.
Was she really a practicing Satanist? I can't picture her slaughtering goats.
Jayne Mansfield was a starry-eyed romantic. She had a passion for love.
She needed to be noticed. That, like a junkie needs drugs. She had to have publicity.
Anton liked publicity too. Well, they were a perfect pair. Well, no, I'm sure they had an affair, which it would be unnatural if they didn't.
She's always liked that dark side of things.
The founder and high priest of the First Church of Satan, Anton Szandor LaVey.
And in the 1960s, he's gaining a lot of notoriety.
Jayne's big downfall was her addiction to attention.
Her whole life became chaos and drug use and child neglect.
Hey friend, welcome to my channel Crinolude, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars in history. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so and turn on your notifications so you never miss an upload. Now let's get into this video. Today we are talking about the iconic Jayne Mansfield. Stars are the rare entertainers who have that special something that takes them to the next level. From temporary public adoration to the lonely halls of a legend, Jayne Mansfield had a superhuman sense of her own greatness from a very young age. As one of the first blonde bombshells of the 1950s, Mansfield captivated the hearts and minds of countless fans with her breathtaking beauty, gravity-defying figure, and vivacious personality. First of all, do y'all know who her daughter is? Her daughter, Mariska Hargitay, became an actress and star of Law & Order Special Victims Unit. I know, she's so pretty. I'm always so intrigued when she speaks on her mother. She had this to say: "My mother was this amazing, beautiful, glamorous, sensual symbol. But people didn't know that. She played the violin and had a 160 IQ and had 5 kids and loved dogs. She was just so ahead of her time. She was an inspiration. She had this appetite for life, and I think I share that with her," Hargitay told People. Mansfield's extremely high IQ, which she claimed was 163, has been the subject of many commentary. She was fluent in English and 4 other languages. At the high school level, she studied French, Spanish, and German, and in 1963, she added Italian to her repertoire. She was once called Hollywood's smartest dumb blonde, but she later said of the audience, "They're more interested in my 40, 21, 35, which is a reference to her body measurements, than they are in me," end quote. After years of newspaper publishing Mansfield figures, like body measurement figures, evangelist Billy Graham famously declared, "This country knows more about Jayne Mansfield figures, her measurements, than the second commandment," end quote. When Mansfield made her Broadway debut in 1955, she said she had a 41-inch bust and a 22-inch waist. Mansfield studied the piano and violin at a theater. She also performed in theater and nightclubs and released albums and singles featuring her singing. Many punk rockers looked to Mansfield as an influence after she passed away. When it came to publicity, Mansfield had one of Hollywood's strongest drives. She was completely open for photographers to come and take pictures whenever they wanted. She presented publicist James Byron with a gift on Christmas Eve, 1954, and hired him to handle her publicity for the next few years, as she constantly planted publicity material in the media. In the period from September 1956 to May 1957, she was the subject of approximately 122,000 lines of newspaper copy and appeared in approximately 2,500 newspaper photographs. She was constantly in the headlines for scandalous antics, such as wearing low-cut dresses without a bra and dresses that strategically burst at the seams. As she handled her own publicity without guidance, things deteriorated. In 1973, Los Angeles Herald-Examiner writer James Bacon had this to say: "Here was a girl with real comedy talent, spectacular figure, and looks, and yet ridiculed herself out of business by outlandish publicity," end quote. And also, do you guys know she played backing for a lot of Jimi Hendrix's songs? Yeah, she had a lot of real talent, but she hid it for the fame. So it's unfortunate. In April 1957, at a dinner party honoring the Italian actress Sophia Loren, her chests were the focus of a publicity stunt designed to divert attention away from Loren. They were the subject of worldwide photographic publication. The most famous image depicts Loren's gaze falling on Mansfield's cleavage as she leans forward, exposing one, just to Loren and Clifton Webb at dinner. Newspapers and magazines published a UPI sensational photo of Jayne Mansfield and Sophia Loren, but the word censored covered up the actress's exposed chest. That is one of the most famous photos. Everybody always see that photo.
Mansfield worked hard at being the dumbest and the blondest. Unlike some of today's stars, Jayne loved the constant attention of the press. Her perpetual giggle and distracting physical attributes disguised a PR genius who constantly found new ways to get publicity. And she would stage suggestive photo opportunities to get it. How important fame must have been for Jayne, and how she would stop at nothing to get it.
I was quite cooperative publicity-wise because I felt it was of no value whatsoever to be a good actress and if no one knows about it. So I thought, all right, I'll cooperate as much as I can.
Late father's family had provided Jayne with a trust fund. Determined to keep her career alive, she used the money to develop her image. She adopted pink as her trademark, developed a fondness for heart-shaped objects, ordered a custom pink Jaguar, a mink coat, and bought a house.
She was a press agent's dream.
By now, her picture was on the cover of nearly every magazine. When she returned to Hollywood, several major studios were fighting over her. She appeared so often in the papers, the editors of one daily posted a bulletin in the city room that barred her picture until further notice. She went back to her old ploys and orchestrated one of the most famous PR stunts ever.
It's a party at Romanoff's welcoming Sophia Loren to Hollywood. Jayne sidles up to the table, and her bosom is hanging halfway out of a dress and a nipple is on view.
Mansfield was instantly the most overexposed celebrity on the planet. Following the stunt, many in Hollywood thought that she had gone too far.
At the same time, the world's media were quick to condemn Mansfield's stunts. One editorial columnist wrote, "We are amused when Miss Mansfield strains to pull in her stomach to fill out her bikini better, but we get angry when career-seeking women, shady ladies, and certain starlets and actresses use every opportunity to display their anatomy unasked." In April 1967, the Los Angeles Times wrote, "She confuses publicity and notoriety with stardom and celebrity, and the result is very distasteful to the public," end quote. Hollywood reporter Lawrence J. Quirk once asked Monroe about Jayne Mansfield, and Monroe had this to say: "All she does is imitate me," Monroe complained, "but her imitations are an insult to her as well as to myself." Monroe added, "I know it's supposed to be flattering to be imitated, but she does it so grossly, so vulgarly. I wish I had some legal means to sue her."
When the 3Ms were going good, this community was jumping.
Marilyn Monroe, the undisputed queen of glamour. Mamie Van Doren, the pretender to the throne. And Jayne Mansfield, the lady in waiting.
Her entire career was based on spoofing Marilyn Monroe. She didn't take herself too seriously, and she was out for laughs.
And if Marilyn Monroe was the Broadway of the blonde bombshells, Jayne Mansfield was the roadshow.
Marilyn at that time was in New York and on suspension from 20th Century Fox, refusing to play the roles.
Fox suddenly saw Mansfield as another Monroe.
20th Century Fox advertised her as Marilyn Monroe king size. Without any disrespect to Marilyn, it just meant everything was bigger.
Now let's get into her childhood, okay? Jayne Mansfield was born Vera Jane Palmer on April 19, 1933 in Pennsylvania. She was the only child of Herbert William Palmer, whose ancestors were from England and Germany, and Vera Jeffrey Palmer, whose ancestors was from England and Cornwall. She grew up in Pillsbury, New Jersey, where her father was an attorney who worked for future New Jersey Governor Robert B. Maynard. When Mansfield was only 3 years old, her father died of a heart attack in the car. As Mansfield reflected on the tragedy years later, she remarked, "There was a loss in my life. The things I remember from childhood brings me the most joy. The good times we had when he was alive are the ones I try to recall most often," end quote. Mansfield's mother went back to teaching so she and her daughter could make ends meet, and in 1939, her mother married Harry Pierce, a sales engineer.
Jayne Mansfield was born Vera Jane Palmer In 1933, in the small town of Penn Argyll, Pennsylvania,
Jayne was an East Coast girl, born into a middle-class family, headed by her attorney father. But she grew up in Texas.
She was the only child of Herbert and Vera. Her father, Herbert, died of a heart attack when Janie was 3. He left a void in her life that she always tried to fill.
And looking to men for a father image.
He was just coming back from a medical. He had been checked, and he was given a clean bill of health. And on the way home, he keeled over with a heart attack in the car and died. And Jayne was in the car at the time.
Vera Palmer, a school teacher, eventually remarried. Jane's stepfather, Harry Piers, moved his new family southwest. As a starstruck little girl, her bedroom was cluttered with fan magazines. Janie hoped to appear on the pages of these magazines one day.
Like thousands of American girls, she dreamed of becoming the next Shirley Temple. She was determined to have a movie career.
As a teenager, Jane already started to resemble these stars, a fact which was not lost on the opposite sex.
Mansfield had a comfortable middle-class upbringing, thanks to her mother, who encouraged her daughter's interest in languages and was said to be a strict but fair teacher. She also had a natural talent for the stage. Mansfield took violin, voice, and dance lessons and could often be found performing for neighbors in her driveway. In 1950, she graduated from Highland Park High School. Palmer studied violin, piano, and viola in high school. She also took Spanish and German classes. She consistently received high grades in all subjects. So when Mansfield was only 16 years old, she met Paul Mansfield, then 20 years old, at a Christmas party and fell hopelessly in love with him. In January of 1950, just months before Mansfield's graduation from Highland Park High School, the couple secretly tied the knot. She had her daughter, Jayne Marie, later that year. Jayne kept the marriage under wraps and continued to attend high school and live with her mother and stepfather. However, when Jayne became pregnant, the secret came out, and she said, "Mama said I had ruined my life and her life." Jayne told friends and biographer May Mann. "Mama said I made my bed and I would have to lie in it and to expect no help from her. Then she relented and bought me a pretty white dress and had a wedding of sorts. But I always remembered her telling me never to expect help from her." End quote.
When her mother remarried, the family moved to Dallas. Jane developed early and was soon proving popular with the local young men. So it wasn't surprising when Jane became pregnant at 15. But she was rescued by older student Paul Mansfield.
She's really crazy about him. So crazy about him that they got married. He was 20, she was 16, and not yet out of high school.
At that time in Dallas, it was against school policy, of course, for anyone married to be going to school. We were married at Broadway Baptist Church in Fort Worth. They were my parents and her parents. And
9 months and 10 seconds later, as Jane later remembered, baby Jayne Marie was born.
It was very strict. I'm assuming she got that from her mother. She told you to do something, you did it. No doubt about it. She was a tough mom.
During her time at Southern Methodist University and the University of Texas at Austin, Mansfield studied drama and performed in several stage productions, including a local version of Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. The Mansfields spent a short time back in Texas after the end of the summer semester, but they eventually settled in Camp Gordon, Georgia, due to Paul's activation in the Army Reserve during the Korean War. So her husband was jealous of Jane's habits of sunbathing and exercising outside, which caused quite a stir among the soldiers and their wives. After Paul finished his service in the Korean War in 1954, Mansfield successfully persuaded him to relocate to Los Angeles so she could pursue a career in the film industry. Jane moved to Los Angeles in 1951 and enrolled at UCLA for the summer semester. Paul found out that she had entered the Miss California pageant and made her drop out. She followed her husband to Austin, Texas, where she enrolled in UT Austin to pursue a degree in theater. There, she did door-to-door book sales, worked as a receptionist at a dance studio, and posed bare for artists. She also became a member of the Curtain Club, a campus theatrical society where she met such famous people as Tom Jones, Harvey Schmidt, Rip Torn, and Pat Hingle. Mansfield won several pageants while she was a student at the University of Texas at Austin, including the titles of Miss Photo Flash, Miss Magnesium Limp, and Miss Fire Prevention Week. Now, at first, Mansfield's time in Hollywood was a failure. She tried out for Paramount and Warner Bros., but was rejected, so she settled for selling candy at the theater. She also tried to break into the modeling industry, but was cut from a professional photo shoot for a General Electric ad because the photographer, Jean Lester, felt she was too sensual and had too big of tatas. 1954, Mansfield and Paul divorced, but she kept his last name because of how difficult it had become for her to break into the entertainment industry at the time. And according to biographer Raymond Strait, Paul Mansfield had hoped that marriage and motherhood would quell his wife's ambitions. But by the time Paul left for Korea, the marriage was effectively over, but propriety kept Jayne from filing for divorce. "I knew it," Mansfield said, "and I think Paul did too, but you don't walk out on your husband while he's off fighting a war. At least I don't," end quote.
Jayne's marriage, meanwhile, fell victim to her budding success. Paul didn't want to take a back seat to her career.
Ex-husband Paul Mansfield files for custody of their daughter. When the judge rebukes Jayne for posing nude, she replies, "Guilty."
There's nothing wrong with posing for a magazine.
But Jayne insists she posed nude to buy bread and milk for her baby. The judge grants the divorce and gives Jayne sole custody of her daughter. She says she became pregnant at 17 after being raped and chose Paul to be Jayne Mary's father. But he isn't the girl's real dad. Back in New York, when Jayne goes out with a man, she leaves her daughter alone in the restaurant bathroom. Not exactly good mothering.
In 1954, she debuted in 3 films. Hugh Hefner launched a magazine, Playboy, in December 1953. Part of the magazine's early success can be attributed to her contributions. Mansfield was featured extensively in the February 1955 issue of Playboy as the magazine's Playmate of the Month. Mansfield's career was given a boost after her February appearance increased the magazine's readership. Later, she posed for the Playboy calendar, where she discreetly covered her breasts with her hands. In August of 1956, Paul Mansfield, the ex-husband, filed for custody of his daughter, claiming that Jayne was unfit to raise his child because she posed for Playboy, It was in a low-budget drama, Female Jungle, which was shot in just 10 days that Mansfield made her film debut. We shot her scenes over the course of a few days. With the help of her manager and publicist, James Byron, she was able to negotiate a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers in February 1955. The contract guaranteed her a weekly salary of $250, which is equivalent to $3,000 today, as well as roles in 2 films, one with a minor role and the other with a 2-year delay before its release. In January of that year, she officially ended her marriage to Paul Mansfield.
Like all newcomers, she's afraid of overly friendly directors and their badgering assistants and the inevitable casting couch. Jayne answers countless casting calls, trembling with fear. She's living alone in L.A. while her husband serves a 2-year army stint in Korea. She lands her first movie role in Female Jungle, where she plays a nymphomaniac called Candy Price. Variety magazine, The Hollywood Bible, cruelly quips that Jayne looks like the understudy of a Marilyn Monroe impersonator. In 1955, Warner Brothers signs Jayne to a 6-month contract at $250 a week.
So Pete Kelly's Blues, starring Jack Webb, and Hell on Frisco Bay, starring Alan Ladd, gave Mansfield bit parts. She appeared in one more Warner Brothers film, a minor but significant role, opposite Edward G. Robinson in the courtroom drama Illegal. So on May 3rd, 1956, 20th Century Fox in New York City signed Mansfield to a 6-year contract in hopes of grooming her as a replacement to Marilyn Monroe. Their resident blonde, sensual symbol who had just finished filming the extremely challenging Bus Stop will success spoiled Rock Hunter was Mansfield's last Broadway show before her contract expired on September 15, 1956. So she went on to star in several other films that were kind of successful and some weren't, kind of like in between, right? Kiss Them For Me, also in 1957, was Mansfield's 4th leading role in Hollywood film, and she starred top billing with Cary Grant. Mansfield's career was doomed by persistent media attention focused on her physical appearance. Fox got kind of tired of it. They cast her as the female lead opposite Kenneth Moore in the Western comedy The Sheriff of Fractured Jaw, which was shot in Spain. The film featured Connie Francis dubbing 3 songs originally performed by Mansfield. The film was released by Fox in the United States in 1959. It was Mansfield's last commercial success in the film industry. She was offered a role in the romantic comedy Belle, Book, and Candle, starring James Stewart and Jack Lemmon, but she declined because she was pregnant. By the early 1960s, Mansfield was a box office has-been due to a decline in the demand for big-chested blonde bombshells and negative backlash against her excessive publicity. Nonetheless, she remained a celebrity, still able to attract large crowds outside the United States by way of lucrative and successful nightclubs. And she was getting paid a lot of money for those nightclub appearances, okay? Making more than she did in Hollywood, actually. That A lot of people did documentaries on just her nightclub appearances and performances alone. That's how much she was getting those big crowds. After 1959, Mansfield did not play any major roles in films due to her repeated pregnancies. She was unable to work for Fox for a total of 3 years. In the years leading up to the expiration of her contract in 1962, Fox stopped treating her like a major Hollywood star and began lending her and her likeness out to foreign productions in England and Italy. She primarily worked in English and Italian, and many of her films are now considered lost or obscure for those languages. After Mansfield and Paul's divorce in 1955, her personal life took a tumultuous turn that was widely reported on and often overshadowed her acting career. She married Mr. Universe winner Mickey Hargitay, who had previously served as one of Mae West's musclemen in 1958. They co-starred in Hercules and The Hydra and Promises, and their 3 children included future actress Mariska. Aside from her career, Jayne Mansfield's one true love was bodybuilder Mickey Hargitay, whom she married in 1958, stealing him away from an elderly Mae West. Both flamboyant and physically ideal, they complemented one another wonderfully. Even so, Jayne began a string of affairs, including a purported tryst with President John F. Kennedy, which led to the breakdown of her second marriage.
Mickey was one of the stable of hunks kept by Mae West, who introduced him as the most perfectly built man in the world.
The two of them were bigger than life and extraordinary, and they fell head over heels in love.
Their wedding was kind of like something out of a fairy tale, and the front page of a newspaper at the same time. They got married in this beautiful glass chapel. It was a lot of people showed up, a lot of press. I was the flower girl.
Her wedding dress was a skin-tight gown of pale pink lace.
And I think she loved it because she loved having millions of people look at her and be around her. Maybe Mickey might have wanted it a little more private, but I don't think he really had much choice in the matter he went.
Jayne and Mickey would have 3 children together, sons Mickey Jr., born in 1958, and Zoltan in 1960. Their daughter Mariska was born in 1964.
In spite of the turbulence in her marriage to Hargitay, Mansfield married bus stop co-star and director Matt Kienber in 1964. They tied the knot in Mexico despite the fact that it was determined she had not actually divorced Hargitay. Mansfield and Kienber had a child together but later divorced. Subsequently, Mansfield's relationship with Sam Brody, the attorney she had hired to help her with her divorce, deteriorated into rumors of abuse. After realizing that her life and career were spiraling out of control, Mansfield turned to substance and alcohol misuse and began having an explosive affair with her attorney, Sam Brody. They got into frequent drunken brawls. Mansfield's career and life were in peril.
Her career continued to decline. She found less in life to enjoy. She turned to alcohol. Divorce lawyer was Sam Brody. They became lovers.
He was obsessed with her. He gave up a wife and family and abandoned a big law practice to follow Jayne.
Their relationship was a stormy one. Their boozing and brawling finally forced promoters to cancel her nightclub tour of Northern England, complaining that her legs were too black and blue to be exhibited in the miniskirts her act required. Her daughter, Jane Marie, now 16 years old, was also beaten. Marie sought refuge at a West Los Angeles police station. She had allegedly been beaten by Brody.
I didn't like what was going on, and I felt a need to get out. Not just for me, but for my brothers and sisters, and so I packed up and left.
Photos shot by an uncle revealed welts and bruises. With Jane Marie's departure, Jayne Mansfield lost the one constant of her entire life.
Now, before we get into her very, very tragic death and get into those details, let's get into some more facts that you guys may not have known about Jayne Mansfield. One, when it comes to her religion, while she had an interest in the occult and the supernatural and was friends with LaVey, Anton LaVey, Jayne actually grew up Protestant and later converted to Catholicism. She was known to do workouts with a witch broom. She would do squats and lunges, etc. with the broom, and said that it helped her to stay in shape. And she, I don't know, maybe it was a PR stunt. Many people was like, it's another PR stunt that she was using a witch's broom to do workout with because she knew how to get the press going. Like we stated, she was the original Kim Kardashian of old Hollywood. Anything like the Kardashian family, anything for PR stunts, keep up with me, the original influencer, may you say. Before becoming a disciple of Anton LaVey, and if you don't know who Anton LaVey is, once again, he was one of the founders of the Church of Satan and its biggest advocate, and he was really close with a lot of celebrities and old Hollywood stars and politicians, etc., of that generation to recruit them into his system. And then they were basically going out making a disciples of viewers who watched their movies. We're going to get into all that, but that's who he was. Okay, that's Anton LaVey.
That would say that Satanists would like to kill animals, sacrifice animals. I would say that they would make ideal human sacrifices. Satan can take the form of a beautiful woman. Satan can take the form of a sleek animal. An automobile can be very satanic. Well, when I was a teenager, I was interested in the occult. And the occult in those days meant you got dream books and you got books on fortune telling and all that sort of thing. And so I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to call up any demons, if I'm going to get anything going my way, if I'm going to get any magical power, I better get on the side of those guys instead of protecting myself from them. Sex goddesses of the past have been largely as a result of luck more than anything else. However, in the case of Jayne Mansfield, she was an active member of the Church of Satan and certainly under tragic circumstances left the Church of Satan. And the situation concerning Miss Monroe, that was a long, long time ago, long before the Church of Satan. However, she did have an unswerving interest in the dark side of life. And I think that was one of the main reasons that we managed to hit it off the way we did. But I can assure you, Satanism is here to stay.
So according to May Mann, Mansfield's best friend of 12 years, Mansfield pursued astrology, religious cults, was fascinated with Satanism and the occult, and engaged in bizarre behavior such as wandering around graveyards and cemeteries. Mansfield came to embrace all of the satanic doctrines as well as pledge memberships to the Church of Satan. Mansfield had a custom pink and black Baphomet medallion made for her, and as an avid promoter of Satanism, even wore it to the 1966 San Francisco Film Festival. And if you don't know, Baphomet is basically Satan, the devil, the representation of Satan. Mansfield's perseverance and determination within the church soon escalated her to the position of high priestess. This honor came with a certificate that she had framed and proudly hung in her bedroom. To complement her occult studies, she also enveloped herself in witchcraft and black magic. Jayne would telephone constantly to put people in touch with LaVey, desiring that they too would adopt the merits of Satanism. LaVey says, and I quote, "They'd call from their table in a restaurant after they finished dinner. Before they got on the phone, she'd give them a big build-up. This fellow is very big here, Anton, very influential. He can do a lot of good work. I've told him all about you. Here he is now," end quote. I'd find myself giving a spontaneous lecture about Satanism and what I was doing. Of her efforts to convert society, he says, and I quote, "She was very zealous, to say the least," end quote. Mansfield's trust in Satan proved illegitimate as it cost her her life. We're going to get more into her death later, but the point is her death was tragic and sudden, and ironically, LaVey reported that 15 minutes before he heard of the accident that killed Jayne Mansfield, he had cut Jayne Mansfield's head off of a picture with a pair of scissors. So he was upset with her too. Mansfield had truly run her last spiritual red light with this man, right? In terms of her political beliefs, focused more on publicity and personal benefit than strictly party lines. She famously attended a Democratic fundraiser, but worried about being labeled a Democrat, stating, and I quote, "I like them all," indicating a desire to appeal to both Republicans and Democrats for opportunities, even commenting on the good parties hosted by President Eisenhower. Her political activities, like attending events for candidates, were often tied to gaining attention and career advantage. Marilyn Monroe was certainly the most famous movie star ever recorded having intimacy with John F. Kennedy, right? But she wasn't the first. That dubious honor went to Jayne Mansfield, her competitor. After listening to Mansfield romping with Kennedy, Otosh dutifully placed the recording inside his dossier for the Republican Party. So it was kind of like blackmail they were holding against Kennedy. Now, in terms of her influence on pop culture, Hollywood culture, and how she impacted society today, goodfight.org did a wonderful expose describing her influence and how it helped to make it possible for us to have people like the Kim Kardashians and for people to be a lot more free from the golden age of Hollywood. Mansfield was basically one of the first to really popularize bearing it all. When it comes to the influence of Jayne Mansfield, at a time when most of the nation was still somewhat conservative, she attempted to do all in her power to liberate men and women from the moralities that govern them. Her movies sought to exploit sexuality in a new and risque way considered perverse in the 50s and 60s. She was one of the first to break the taboo of no bareness in films, which became the forerunners for the swing sex films of the 1970s. What few people realize is that Jayne Mansfield was a full-blown Satanist who worshipped the devil and relied upon his power for her success. Appropriately, her image graces the cover of Satanist Kenneth Anger's Hollywood Babylon, which documents the web of depravity found in the movie industry. That is a great book. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest you guys, if you're into reading. I don't know if Audible have it, but check it out on Audible as well, because it really goes down the rabbit hole of old Hollywood, how we have the Hollywood we have today and the society we have today, how it came from old Hollywood. It will really blow your mind, and you will look at the industry completely different, because oftentimes we look at the glamour of old Hollywood. The people were beautiful and glamorous, but it was depravity behind the scenes. They were like, you see women like a Jayne Mansfield, because if you see my Diana Dors video, she was gorgeous too. Another Marilyn Monroe spoof, very beautiful woman, but she was touching children. She had parties like Diddy. She was the queen of the Diddy parties, as beautiful and glamorous as she was. And there were young women that were not of age that grew up to sue her. And there was like evidence of that, so a lot was happening behind the scenes, behind all this glamour, and everyone was so proper back then. Everyone was no, there's nothing new under the sun. That is facts. Everything that was done in the past is being done again. So books like that, documentaries like that, Hollywoodism is another great documentary. It shows you how it came to be the original founders and their depraved mindset, the founders of Hollywood and the major studios, etc. Who guys, yeah. But according to LaVey, Mansfield would plead with him for satanic blessings and curses, calling him several times a day for blessings on her work, like her movies, etc. She was really asking him to bless her work. So every movie you watch from her or anything like that, just know there was prayers and rituals and blessings, quote unquote, that was placed on them. Which she's not the only one. Don't just look at her like that. That's just how it is in Hollywood. That's the fact. Even TV shows you're watching, Jayne's friends all insist that her greatest desire was to be in the movies. As LaVey's disciple, she was encouraged to trust in Satan for her wishes and desires. Eyewitnesses speak of Mansfield's full compliance to evil, stretching out bare upon the altar of the Black Mass, opening herself up to the devil, and asking LaVey for help in strengthening her career. More than anything else, Mansfield wanted success as a movie star. LaVey told Mansfield, and I quote, "The devil has supreme power on this earth. If you want anything here, the devil can give it to you if you join him," end quote. Mansfield increased her ravenous studies of Satanism. LaVey said Jayne was very proud of the fact that if she liked something enough, she would commit it to memory. At the time, the Satanic Bible was still in monograph form, and Jayne had pored over these pages until she knew most of it by heart. End quote. The Satanic Bible has 272 pages, and Mansfield told LaVey that she memorized all of it, and that Satanism was the only way of thinking she had ever found meaningful. End quote. Film critics often commented on Jayne's natural abilities in front of the camera. LaVey, however, touted her natural abilities as a witch and Satanist. Her on-screen and off-screen images were very intertwined. On-screen, she was alluring, voluptuous, and caused men everywhere to drool. As a Satanist, Mansfield's desire was, as Mae West before her, to emancipate mankind from the biblical concept that sex outside of marriage was sinful. These on and off-screen messages through her stories definitely definitely pay homage to her natural abilities as a Satanist. Thus, when Hollywood promoted Mansfield's philosophies, they were really following LaVey's. Her popularity and exposure added to her vast ability to affect so many people. LaVey says, and I quote, "Jayne unabashedly encouraged men to leer at her, to desire her. She reveled in the lust she evoked in men." End quote. Crawley's axiom of "do what thou will shall be the whole of the law." And Crawley, if you don't know, was another occultist who was Major Aleister Crowley, and he was really, really friends with a lot of these celebrities.
This is the wickedest man in the world, Aleister Crowley. He was an occultist, a writer, and one of the most controversial figures of the early 20th century. Born in 1875, he grew up in a strict religious household, but rebelled early. One of his most infamous connections lies on the shores of Loch Ness, Boleskine House. Crawley bought the property in 1899, believing it was the perfect place to perform some of his long and complex rituals. His rituals were often taboo and extreme: sex, drugs, ceremonial magic, blood rituals, and animal sacrifice. It's even rumoured that people passed away during some of these rituals. After he left, Boleskine gained a reputation for tragedy. It's burnt down not once but twice. There's been raids and hauntings. It was later purchased by Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page. So I'm not sure if Aleister Crowley was truly evil or just a man misunderstood in a deeply religious Victorian world. Either way, he definitely didn't help his reputation by calling himself the Beast 666.
Aleister Crowley, a very famous occultist who practiced ritual magic, he conducted a ritual that's called the Amalantral working, and he made contact with an alien named Lamb. This alien entity that he drew out was the first gray alien that was ever depicted. This magic ritual, it goes all the way back to the Book of Enoch. There were these fallen angels, they called the Watchers, and the Watchers came and they taught man how to use magic, and these entities taught them the Enochian language. Crowley said, okay, well, let's talk to these entities using that Enochian language. And he did that many times. For decades and decades, the government had this internal Pentagon group that said, hey, all this alien activity could be demonic in some way. Pump the brakes on trying to summon these things because there could be some unintended consequences.
And one of his biggest laws, you would say, is do what thy will, is the whole sum of the law, meaning do whatever you want, whatever floats your boat, whatever you like, do it. Like a hedonistic practice, there's liberation and everything, right? He brought on the movement of sexual liberation, psychedelics, all of those, like just do whatever you want. There's no rules. The art of rebellion. And his claims also, what he pushed the most was free sex. It would mark the attitude manifesting themselves in a new age, definitely were advocated by Mansfield, right? So she was an avid student of Aleister Crowley as well, and she loved his philosophy on free sex. And she stated, and I quote, "I love sex. It should be animalistic. It should be sadistic. It should at times even be masochistic. There are few rules and moral conventions," end quote. So she believed in freedom and just being wild. She literally was wild. We're going to see towards the end of the video. Just wait on it. Her New York critics said of her, and I quote, "She sold sex better than any performer in the world," end quote. Her seductions effectively lured the masses, and even best friend May Mann named her as a sorceress. Playboy acknowledges her influence on liberating women from the wisdom of modest dressing. And they stated, and I quote, "No capital in the world is more cunning at playing peekaboo with the human body female than our film capital," meaning Hollywood. "The recent wave of nudie movies, however, has injected a breath of fresh air upon the scene. Their unpretentious nakedness and their wide public acceptance have helped push bodices down and hemlines up to where they virtually vanish. In otherwise straight productions, it is therefore fitting and proper that the trail from nudie to straight be blazed by none other than the undisputed of altogether brinksmanship, Miss Jayne Mansfield." Jayne now proudly heads the scant list of authentic Hollywood heroines whose feats of bearing do go beyond the call of duty, end quote. Hugh Hefner, wanting to justify his pictures and films, downplays their seriousness by comparing them to the movies, saying, and I quote, "The pictures of Jayne and the June issue are, in our opinion, simply candid photographs of a movie in the making," end quote. The message is that if it's acceptable in a movie, then it has has to be okay with my magazines, etc. And he used Jayne Mansfield because he said, what is she doing that's different than the photography set I had out there? So she was the image of sex in her era, even more than a Marilyn Monroe, which is crazy. By placing her trust in Satan, she was deluded into believing that she would have power, success, and protection. Instead, when Satan was done using her to manipulate millions, he threw her away like trash. In spite of her proclamations that Satan was mankind's best friend, that was a thing she literally said, mankind's best friend, he truly was and is a friend to no one. In her final days, she lost all respect, even with the media. Even the way they described her physical decline was borderline disrespectful, calling her pudgy and saying she has let herself go. Like, they described her so wrong. And I'm like, wow, how can the devil, quote unquote, give you this fame and success? But this is how he allows people to talk about you.
Jayne isn't even 30 yet. She lets herself go. She has 3 more babies. She puts on weight. She starts doing drugs. She floats from fling to fling. She sparks scandals and flaunts her nude body publicly. She tells the world that her new lover, Nelson Sardelli, is a wild man in bed, and that former lover, Enrico Bomba, gave her orgasms that were both heaven and hell. I like sex, she says. It's a gift from God. For years, Jayne has hesitated to shed her clothes for unrated movies. She knows she has to make a choice, display her talent or her body. The rawest images are already being sold in sex shops. She spends hours in front of the mirror looking for signs of aging. She tries new creams to keep her changing body young. She has a hard time squeezing into her dresses. After bleaching her hair for so many years, it starts falling out. She wears beehive wigs that make her look like a pudgy crossdresser. Jayne guzzles LSD-laced champagne. She lets herself go, becoming a slatternly mess. Spaced out on drugs, she claims to be hounded by the devil. She has debilitating panic attacks.
This goes to show you, no matter how much you do for the devil, it always ends the same. He is loyal to no one. All of these celebrities, like a Kim K, that glamorize surgeries and hedonism, they all have the same fate unless they give it all away and turn from this lifestyle. The devil will make everyone love you at first, only to hate you soon as you make it to the top. That's the cost. That's why you see celebs are loved when they are struggling artists, but as soon as they get real clout, the public turns against them, because now the same people he influenced to love you, because there's curses, and if you're not in Christ, you really are going to love these people, because there are people that defend these people with their souls, and you're like, wait, why these people have this attachment to celebrities and they defend them with their very own life? Because they're under a curse and they're under influence. Those same people, when the devil is ready for you to hate that same celebrity, you'll see you quickly turn against them, and all that love you have will be gone from them. And that's what was happening to her towards the end. They just disrespected her in the media, and she was like a caricature of herself. They made fun of her. It's just very, very sad to see that kind of decline, but you see it often with celebrities. Once people start saying, oh, it's a humiliation ritual. No, it's just the devil doing his thing. He gave you the fame, and now he wants people to turn against you and hate you, so he's throwing all these things out there. It's not a humiliation ritual in a sense that people are doing it, but it's him. That's how he works. But let's kind of go back into a lighter note, because that's pretty heavy, right? Let's do a beauty analysis for her, because it's undeniable that she was beautiful. She reminds me most of Anna Nicole, which I did a video for Anna Nicole Smith as well. If you haven't seen that, check that out. I'll actually pin it in the comments. She reminds me a lot of Anna Nicole, and I do have some compassion for Anna Nicole, which you'll see why if you check that video, right? Though she was compared often to Marilyn, Jayne Mansfield was, but she's just a very, very beautiful woman. A 1957 Lydia Lane article breaks down her full beauty analysis, and she told Lydia, and I quote, "The studio made some changes. My hair is a different shade, my hairline is higher, and my black eyebrows have been bleached. I believe in doing everything you can to make yourself look great. This doesn't mean you have to be dressed up every time you go out, but even casual clothes such as pedal pushers, sweaters, and casual shoes should be carefully chosen so that you will be neatly groomed. I've always had a good figure," Jayne continued. "I believe in exercise to tone your muscles and keep you in shape. I don't wear a girdle. I think it ruins the figure. I learned to hold in my stomach without it, and I don't wear a bra although I work every day with 5-pound dumbbells to keep my bust line firm. I stand up, my arms apart, shoulder high, and make little circles, first in one direction and then the other. I lie on a slant board with my shoulders off the floor and raise my arms close together above my face. I slowly lower them and then sweep them up. I do this same exercise back of my head and up again. These chest muscles need exercise to stay firm and keep your bust line high. I never let eating get out of hand, Jayne confided. When I was pregnant, I didn't allow myself to gain more than 12 pounds, but I felt well. The baby weighed 8 pounds. The secret of keeping a good figure is to eat the right amount of the right food. In New York, when I was rehearsing for the play, I was so nervous I couldn't eat, but I didn't want to get too thin. I drank an energy cup consisting of hot chocolate, orange juice, and the yolk of an egg. I love pizza, spaghetti, and all fattening Italian foods, but it makes me feel terrible afterwards. And Jayne reflected, it is not worth it. Though sometimes I indulge, and when I gain, I go on my favorite diet of steak, tomatoes, and apple juice 3 times a day. I was born in the North, Jayne said, and my family moved south just as I was starting school. The children made fun of the way I talked and wouldn't let me participate. But Jayne said with a smile, I wasn't shy for long, and in the 3rd grade, my classmate voted me queen of the class. That was the beginning of learning self-discipline and how to get along with others. If you want something in life, go after it. I believe in hard work. Success comes as a result of everything you do. It is a combination of your ability, personality, and appearance. Women shouldn't compete with men, Jayne observed. I had better than a B+ average at the University of Texas, but I learned that while most men admire intelligence in women, they do not wish to have to vie with them for authority. Then too, if you feign coyness or over sophistication, most men will see through it and know it for what it is, just an act. It's a certain feminine quality that attracts men. A woman should try to be soft as a kitten and make her voice as soft as a purr, and she should be graceful and as beautiful as a kitten, but she should never be catty or she will lose her man. He is quick to recognize cattiness and to be repelled by it, Jayne said with finality. This is practically the story of my life. I played a dumb blonde who really turns out to be the brains of the group. I was a good student and I had only a few months to go on my college degree when I got my first Hollywood contract. But my publicity agent told me not to mention my education. It will be easier for me to sell you if they think you are all body and no brains, he said. I had light brown hair and he asked me to bleach it. He told me to get a sexy sheath with cleavage. So I spent all the cash I had at the beauty salon and for an $80 dress. That was about 3 times what I generally paid for clothes. Your figure is your fortune, he kept insisting, and sent me on a publicity junket in a bikini. And I got my first contract without ever mentioning that I had trained as a dancer and studied dramatics. That image has been good for me, and I am staying with it, Jayne added. It's been a long time since I started bleaching my hair, she continued. So when I want to let it get brown at the roots and give it a rest, I wear a wig. I have several and they are so light and natural looking. And with the swimming weather coming, it will be such a comfort because I can have my exercise and still look glamorous in the evening. Everyone in our family exercises. I use pastel-colored barbells. Mickey sells them, and he does a big mail-order business with them. They come in all weights. A girl wants to tone her body, not build muscle, so she shouldn't use heavy ones. If nature doesn't give you the shape you would like to have, then I believe you should work to develop yourself. There is a right way and wrong way to exercise. If you have figure faults with paper exercise, you can correct them. It just takes time, patience, and perseverance. Not everyone can go to the gym. But those who can work out routines at home. It only takes a few minutes a day, and it will bring the circulation and make you feel better and look better. I believe that dieting without exercise is useless, and exercising without eating nutritionally is ineffectual. We are a healthy family with all the flu and colds that were around last winter, and none of us was sick. If you take care of your body, there is no reason why it won't take care of you. When Jayne was without domestic help recently, she cooked 2 hot meals a day for her family. That's Lydia Lane writing this in her article. She said, usually, I prepare breakfast and lunch and Mickey barbecue the dinner. I think it's shameful the way some mothers give no thought to what they feed their families. And I agree with the person who said that many Americans dig their graves with their knives and forks. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And I think every mother should send her children and husband away in the morning with full stomachs. I don't believe the adage, you can think better on an empty stomach. To sum up Jayne's health program, she believes in exercising, eating well, and having lots of family love. Lydia Lane asked Jayne what she could tell a girl in her teens about being popular with the opposite sex. She said, "Be yourself. A boy doesn't like a phony. An actress creates an image on the screen, but off camera and when she is with her family and friends, she's natural and unaffected. Try to be fun. Looks aren't everything, but make yourself as attractive as possible and still seem natural." And she also was big on perfume and scents. She said, "I like most things American, but when it comes to perfume, the French are really the masters. The average American woman pays too little attention to perfume. The sense of smell has a great influence whether we like or dislike someone. Fragrance has great power to attract, and once you find the right perfume, stay with it. It's a way of adding to your individuality." End quote. She has a pretty solid take on health, etc. So we'll give her 10s for that. In terms of scandal, she was actually really eloquent. She spoke French, Spanish, Italian, and Hungarian. She plays violin also and the piano beautifully. She was a very, very intelligent woman.
In the film, she plays Rita Marlowe, a ditzy star. Jayne lets people believe she's just like her character. Jayne wants to be appreciated as a real actress, but her talents are obscured by her blonde bombshell persona. A self-assured Jayne tells reporters she'd like to meet Jean-Paul Sartre and Juliette Greco. She's into philosophy and claims to read Montaigne and Voltaire in French. She chides disbelieving reporters by telling them she can even play Paganini and Rachmaninoff.
So I think she very calculatedly decided. She understood what the images were. She understood that people are typecast, that stereotypes run the show. And so she was going to play into that stereotype.
Sex appeal is a wonderful, warm, womanly, healthy feeling. If you're a woman, it's womanly. If you're not, it's manly. There's nothing that's manufactured. It has nothing to do with measurements or lipstick color. It's cleanliness and youth.
And many of Jayne Mansfield's admirers claim that she was really quite an intelligent woman who was very consciously playing this image of the dumb blonde.
Jayne Mansfield was said to be a lot more intelligent in person than she was ever allowed to be on screen. And it may be her misfortune.
Her IQ was 163, which is, a near genius level. She could speak fluent Italian, fluent French, fluent German.
She didn't lord it over everybody else how intelligent she was. She stayed within the image that she projected on the screen.
Her kids said that even her voice in public was faked and not her natural speaking voice. She actually had a very normal voice, but when she'd get in public, she'll do the soft and raspy and, the Marilyn Monroe voice. But even Marilyn Monroe, that wasn't her real voice either.
Make a picture with?
Yes, I just finished a picture with Cary Grant. It's called Kiss Them For Me, and it'll be out here in December. And he's one of my very favorites. Yes. Oui. A person to exist as a star is one thing, and a person to exist as an actress is another.
Her hair color was not real as well as she stated, and she was not a natural blonde. Now, the biggest scandal that has come out is about Nelson, who is Mariska's real father. Her mother ended up lying to her about Mickey Hargitay being her dad, and in the documentary that she did recently, I watched it on a plane, actually. It's very, very good. You guys will really love it. A very heartfelt documentary. I don't know if you can find it on Netflix or Hulu, but I definitely watched it on a plane, and it was really, really good. That's where she dropped the bombshell that Mickey Hargitay was not really her dad. Jayne cheated on Mickey, and that's why they really divorced.
Actress Mariska Hargitay reveals she's been living a lie my entire life. The Law & Order SVU star says in her new documentary that her biological father is not Mickey Hargitay, the man who raised her. Instead, it's this man, a Brazilian-born entertainer named Nelson Sardelli. Mariska's mother, the legendary 50s blonde bombshell Jayne Mansfield, was married to Mickey Hargitay, but during a brief separation in 1964, her mother dated Sardelli. Mariska says she learned the truth about her biological father when she was in her 20s, after she was shown a photo of Sardelli. She's also revealing that her mother's image of a buxom beauty often upset her.
I didn't really like some of the choices she made, and so I felt myself being embarrassed by her. I really had an identity crisis. For me, breaking this generational trauma has been so liberating.
Yeah, that sucks. Jayne Mansfield had a very big sexual appetite as well, and she could not stay faithful to Mickey Hargitay. She really did break his heart a lot. And with most men, that she got into relationships and affairs with, she could not stay faithful to them and basically expected them to like be okay with that. Because even Mariska's real father said that that was one of the reasons why he dropped her, was because she asked him, hey, if I were to be with you and then I got pregnant by another man, would you still stay with me? And he was like, absolutely not. And broke up with her, even though he was the side man. I was going to say side chick, but side man to her and not the main, which is crazy.
While Mickey stayed at home to mind the children, Jayne embarked on a string of affairs, which pushed the marriage to breaking point.
Jayne made the decision one day to divorce him and made the announcement to the press with Mickey standing right next to her, Mickey not even knowing.
So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Also, she claimed that Paul Mansfield, her first husband, was not her first daughter's real father either. And that, somebody took her innocence without her consent. And he decided to just be the father. And that's why they got a divorce. Whew. Her story is a lot, right? Her story is a lot in terms of that. But let's move on forward now to the more somber part, which is her death. After performing at a nightclub in Biloxi, Mississippi on June 29, 1967, Mansfield Brody and a hired driver were riding in the front seats of a Buick Electra on their way to New Orleans, Louisiana, for a morning television interview. The three kids of Mansfield and Hargitay were in the back seat, and after 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 people in the front seats were dead, when their car slammed into and went underneath a slowing tractor trailer thought to be obscured by pesticide spray. At the time of her death, Mansfield was only 34 years old. Even though they were hurt, the kids made it out of the car accident alive. When word of the horrific accident spread, speculation arose that Jayne Mansfield had been beheaded in the collision. The photos of Jayne Mansfield's body that were released after the accident only served to spread more false information. In some of the photos, it appeared as though her head had been severed because her wig had been thrown from the car. The police say that Mansfield's death was horrific but swift. The accident report written by the police states the upper portion of this white female's head was severed. The death certificate for Mansfield shows that she had a crushed skull and a partial separation of her cranium, which is more similar to scalping than a complete decapitation. But the beheading tales persisted, appearing even in Crash, the movie, the 1996 movie that was based on her. The accident continues to captivate Mansfield fans who have speculated on everything from a curse placed on Brody by Mansfield's alleged lover, Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, to the persistent but false rumors that the actress was decapitated. Mariska Hargitay, who went on to become famous for her role as Olivia Benson in Law & Order SUV, survived a car accident that took her mother's life. So did 2 of her brothers, Zoltan, who was 6, and Miklos Jr., who was 8. Rather than trying to avoid the pain of losing her mother, Hargitay says she learned to really lean into it, because sooner or later you have to pay the piper. Now let's talk about Anton LaVey real quick. After the 1966 San Francisco Film Festival, when Mansfield was in attendance, she and LaVey finally met and crossed paths. One version has her requesting a meeting with him in advance, while another has her showing up unannounced at his black house after being intrigued by rumors she overheard from other festival goers. For whatever reason, she and her then boyfriend Sam Brody showed up at the festival's unremarkable Victorian house. By the time Mansfield filed for divorce from her third husband, Brody was already working on the case that was her divorce lawyer. He probably resented LaVey, Brody, because he thought LaVey might influence Mansfield, who preferred larger men like Mickey Hargitay, a former Mr. Universe, and her second husband. Although Jayne did not find Brody physically attractive, she pursued a relationship with him in the hopes of securing legal custody of her 4 children. Jayne began to have doubts almost instantly. Brody revealed his violent jealous side, placing unreasonable demands on Jayne. Brody was becoming only more protective, using her pending custody suit to maneuver her deeper into a relationship. Blanche Barton, a former high priestess of the Church of Satan and author of The Secret Life of a Satanist, remarked, "Maybe it was jealousy that pushed Brody to poke fun at LaVey's occult mansion whenever he got the chance. In LaVey's ritual chamber, Barton says he picked up priceless objects, laughed at them, and then lit a skull candle. LaVey's patience have finally worn thin after this heinous act." LaVey told Brody, that candle is used only for curses. I don't know what's going to happen to you now. I only hope I put it out in time. So then all these strange things started happening to Jayne Mansfield, right? She brought her son Zoltan, then 6 years old, to Jungle Land, USA in the Los Angeles area a month after they met LaVey at the Black House. He was mauled by a lion, her small son, Zoltan, at the zoo and ended up needing 3 operations to recover. LaVey took Zoltan to the peak of the mountain, Tamalpais, near San Francisco, and prayed in a satanic ritual in an attempt to save the boy's life, and quick his recovery. Later on, Brody and LaVey's fight boiled over when Mansfield's desire for the man who could have saved her son became so much for Brody to handle. According to Barton, the Satanists placed an eternal curse on Brody's life after he tried to violently interrupt a phone conversation between Mansfield and LaVey by calling LaVey a charlatan. And this is what LaVey allegedly said. "My power exceeds anything you can imagine, and now you're going to feel it. You will be dead in a year, Sam Brody. I pronounce that you will be dead within 1 year," thundered LaVey. This did not stop LaVey and Mansfield from continuing their relationship. They continued to meet up and even had press releases. LaVey had this to say in regards to Mansfield. He said, "She thinks it's the greatest thing going. She is taking instructions. I made her a priestess and told her the concept of hell and paradise. I give her the usual information, working on ritual and how to cast spells. She likes to know about witches and love charms. She considers me a high priest." Conflictingly, Mansfield said in the same release that LaVey had, "It is very interesting. I know the real basis of his church. I think he is a genius and I regard him as an interesting person. But I am a Catholic and would not believe in his church. I am not a member of the Black Circle," end quote.
As Jayne's life and career went into freefall, she sought increasingly desperate forms of support.
Brody brought her to the Church of Satan in San Francisco. Anton LaVey, to me, was the closest I have ever come to believing that anyone on earth could command some sort of occult power, because I could go on forever about the things that happened to people who crossed him in this town. And even though Jayne Mansfield didn't cross him, she happened to be with Sam Brody, the man he had put a curse on. And Anton LaVey warned her. He said to Jayne Mansfield, "Do not hang around this man anymore. I have told him he has less than a year to live, Jayne."
The only people that I would cast a curse or a spell on would be people that would get under my skin.
Along comes Sam Brody.
Anton was not fond of Brody.
Sam Brody was cursed by Anton LaVey.
As a matter of fact, he said he would even die in a car accident.
The star, the buxom and beautiful Jayne Mansfield, is dead. She was killed instantly when the car she was riding in collided with a truck.
When rescue crews find a blonde wig wedged into the windshield, they assume the passenger was decapitated. The actress's 3 children survive, along with 2 of her 4 dogs. A throng of curious onlookers watch her second husband, the ever-faithful Mick, weeping over a casket swathed in pink and white roses. Jane Mary, the 17-year-old daughter who was removed from the star's custody a month earlier, is allowed to attend the funeral. Younger children, Mariska, Zoltan, and Miklos, are still hospitalized.
So with that information, I want you guys to comment your theories below. I'm not going to give my theories. Y'all already should know by now where I stand on these type of topics. Hey, who knows? That's what I'm going to leave with that. I leave you guys to make your comments below. Jayne Mansfield was a beautiful woman. I wish she would have just been herself and, not fall into the temptation of the whole Marilyn impersonator thing. She could have been great, but Hollywood, of course, they were looking for just one specific look at that time. And so it is what it is. But I love you guys. Comment below. Who else would you guys like to see? Don't forget to subscribe. I love you guys. Until next time. I just want to say a huge thank you to all the supporters that have sent Cash Apps and PayPal. I've seen it all. And I just want to say thank you to you guys who understand why a lot of creators are pushing away from Super Thanks and going towards PayPal and Cash App because of how YouTube is doing us behind the scenes with it. I appreciate it because it really helps to push out content unfiltered to you guys. May the Lord reward you tenfold.